Welcome to Tea Time with Talent Acquisition, the podcast aimed at fostering knowledge and sharing stories within the vibrant talent acquisition community. I'm your host, Eden, and for the next hour or so, I'm going to be joined by someone who's been through the tech hiring from every angle: developer, leader, and advisor. He started out as a self-taught engineer back in 2015, freelancing with no money, no connection, no roadmap, just pure determination. But fast forward to today, he's built and worked with engineering teams at some of the most recognizable names in tech, including those such as Shopify. From building scalable systems used by thousands to sharing engineering excellence and mentoring teams, his journey goes far beyond just coding. He's now helping founders and hiring teams streamline tech hiring processes, not from the HR lens, but from the developer's perspective. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. Why, from his perspective, tech hiring is broken and what's gone wrong in that process and what we can actually do to try and fix it. So when you're ready, grab your favorite tea or coffee if you prefer, and join me in welcoming today's guest, lead full stack engineer and tech hiring consultant, Elman Hüseynov. So thanks so much for joining.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
No, I appreciate it. And like I said, it was quite a descriptive intro because, like I said, you've been through different aspects, and you're the first engineer we've had on this podcast. Everyone we've had before you, it's always around the HR context, the talent acquisition context, which is obviously where the podcast sits. But I was very curious about your thought process around hiring, and I actually posed the topic to a couple of people in the network already, and immediately was like, let me know when it goes live. So there seems to be some interest from people to kind of hear from technically who we design our processes for, those in tech, to kind of see where you feel it's gone broken. But before we kind of get into that, I'm going to pose to you the first question that everybody gets, although you're not coming from the talent acquisition lens, it's still going to be interesting to hear your thoughts. So, Elman, from your perspective, what do you feel makes a higher performing recruitment team in the current market?
Thank you very much. It's really interesting question. I have opinion that some people will not agree, but my opinion is strongly subjective. You can agree with or disagree with it, and I'm totally fine with it. From my point of view, the most important here is to understand who you want to hire and why. And this is the one of the most important steps that we have, unfortunately, doesn't work currently properly in the market. By example, I can provide easily. If you open LinkedIn or any other job platform and start to look for job descriptions or add job descriptions, 9 out of 10 will have only vague explanation of who do you want to hire, why, with this kind of buzzwords like we hire rock star or we hire someone who will help us through to streamline the process and etc. It's not tangible and it doesn't provide exactly what should I do as a person who want to join company. It doesn't matter if I join as a manager or individual contributor. So this is really important, and this is basically the biggest issue, unfortunately, that in the end ends with the technical hiring process, which is broken at the moment. The chain, if we look at it as a chain, pipeline chain, the whole issue starts in the very beginning here exactly. After if we're talking about other things here, the second point is the interview process and time that we spend from the moment we find the candidate CV till the moment we close the deal or we give an offer or made the final decision. It can be also rejection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it takes more than, I don't know, months or two maximum for one candidate, then it's a huge problem. The last but not least is the interview process itself and the feedback that you get. A lot of people get rejected without understanding what's going wrong and what should they do or can do to improve the situation to pass the interview next time. This is like globally 3 pillars, bigger pillars that needs to be fixed at the moment in hiring.
So you feel that the high performing team in today's market are those that are tackling, we're making very clear, very concise understanding of what we would need from you on a job description. We're getting the process as clear as possible from everybody, and the actual the hiring itself, I mean, in a quick time fashion, I guess. So those that can kind of hit those 3 core pillars, that is quote unquote the high performing team that we need right now.
Yes, exactly. Of course, we need to dive into details to discuss every single part of it because devils are in details. But from the high level, these are top three things to fix. And
Mm.
if companies or recruitment team can at least fix those three things, they will be 90% ahead of everyone else.
So I guess what's given you the perspective that that is where the market has gone? You know, what have you seen online or from friends or from your own searches, if you've done any, whatever the case is, to make you feel that that's where we are right now?
Well, a lot of friends of mine on daily basis applies and looking for the job. Some of them affected by layoffs and they're looking for a new job because of that, or some of them want to take their career to the next level.
Mhm.
And they attended a lot of interviews from startup agencies, mid-level companies, fangs, big tech brands. It doesn't matter. The process for some reason is more or less the same and
Mhm.
have same issues and symptoms that needs to be fixed. Unfortunately, from what I see, this way of hiring came from big companies, and smaller companies tend to copy their process because they think these guys know how to hire best, and let's just follow this procedure, which is true in theory, but in practice it leads to a lot of mistakes because they don't understand why those big companies make those decisions through hiring and build the hiring process in that specific way. It's working for them, but it's not working for smaller companies.
I also guarantee it's not working for them either. I imagine there's going to be a lot of big tech companies or people from big tech companies listening going, probably having a very similar problem in our process. I mean, you've been
Yeah.
in the industry for a while, right? And I said at the beginning, you started self-taught engineer, moved into it, and the market was very, very different back then. So I've been in recruitment for 12 years, and it's like completely polar opposite to what it was when I first started.
Mhm.
How is it, I guess, what do you think's been the catalytic pain? Catalytic, the right word?
Catalytic.
I
But I
feel like
understand.
I feel like it's not a word, but it should be a word. I'm gonna have to Google this now. Catalyst. You know what I'm saying, but
Yes, yes, of course.
bear
It
with
triggers.
us. Let's just take a little interlude on this one. If anyone can answer it before I can catalytic.
It's basically trigger point. I understand that the
Yeah,
moment when they all
yeah,
start. Yeah.
yeah. Where do you think that's kind of stemmed from? Because I mean, I've got an idea. Don't get me wrong, and I think we probably share a similar idea. But you've been in tech similar time frame I've been in recruitment, so we kind of
Yeah.
have seen the same journeys just from different angles. But yeah, what do you kind of think has been that turning point?
We should go back to history to understand how things in general were built and why, and then to the moment where everything started to break. So the whole process of current way of hiring built nearly 10, 15 years ago. And it was working at that time because you have a low volume of applicants and demand for software was so high and you don't have a similar amount of people who apply as it happened now in 2025.
Yeah.
Then you didn't have also AI at the moment. What happened next? We have COVID. We have a lot of spikes in hiring. Companies hire like crazy. They double count their numbers in 1 year, sometimes two times, three times. And they start to hire too many people and then making layoffs.
Hmm.
Now we have a lot of people on the market who are really professionals. They get affected by layoffs due to business decisions, not because they are not professional.
Hmm.
And companies decided to, use different strategy in hiring and say, okay, we have a lot of candidates, but we have to find the best ones. So what to do about it? Let's increase amount of interviews, which is really, really wrong decision because you focus on quantity over the quality. And if we think about AI now, AI can solve a lot of questions if it's used right, especially lead code questions, algorithmic questions, really fast and much better. However, what I see in the hiring that AI is often banned during the coding interviews, both system design and coding, which is really, really awful. The reason behind is that we want to see how candidate thinks and what actually candidate knows without AI. But the reality is that if you don't have knowledge, AI will not help you. If you have knowledge, AI will help to speed up the process and get to solution faster. The companies for somehow for some specific reasons don't want to follow this new pattern and fix this, which is one of the biggest mistakes in 2025.
Do you think it's the adoption of AI from companies' perspective, or at least the introduction of AI to more of a mainstream, that's helped slow down how hiring has been done? Because again, if I go back to, I think you hit the nail on the head at the beginning.
Yeah.
10 years ago, you wouldn't have 400 applicants for a front-end job. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
And now you get 400. But then even saying that, 380 of them aren't right. And I run those searches myself, so I know for a fact that there was a company that I'm working with in North Rhine who's looking for a Rust engineer, fluent German, based in a very particular town, right? There is about 4 people that could do that job. And their job application has 100 plus applicants. I was speaking to the CEO. She's like, they're just not relevant at all. And and I think from the TA perspective, that's where we look at AI going, fuck's sake. Like, clearly
So
someone is just building like these models just to auto apply to everything. And it's just like, it's just, yes, AI just talking to AI seems to be the comment at the moment. So do you think that is part of that bigger problem we have here?
partially, yes, but AI is basically a result of the bigger issue that I mentioned in the beginning. When you have
Okay.
wrong job description, when you don't understand who you want to hire, you posted the job description, and then there is basically ATS systems that, by the way, it's a really important distinction to make. A lot of candidates think that AI make a decision, rejection or approval. It's not happening by AI, even though I hear some assumptions that now companies will more and more focus on integrating
I
it.
was full on about to fight you on this one, by the way. I was about to tell you it definitively does not do that. Sticking up for all the TA folks out there. So I'm glad you know that, because if there is someone said it somewhere and now it's stuck and everyone now thinks it's fact. It definitely does not reject you. It's 100%
Definitely,
human who
it's
does that.
done by human. However, ATS, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, uses the parsing the keywords from CV.
It can do, yes.
Yes. And in the end of the day, it uses also knockout questions.
Depends if you set it up in that way, but yes.
Yes. So because you set up wrong job description, a lot of candidates start to apply, and then from 400 candidates, you see maybe like half of them are not relevant.
Mhm.
They use this software, people, like candidates use this software because they're really tired of getting automatical rejections, even though
Mhm.
sometimes they are relevant for the position, but maybe their CV is not passing the ATS. And they also really tired of adjusting their CV for every single position. That's why they use this AI software that then can go and apply instead to increase the headcount in the hope that, okay, maybe somehow this way I can pass the screening, initial screening. But of course, 100% AI doesn't make yet rejection or approval decisions. However, I hear some rumors that it will be done in the near future. I don't have proof.
Over my dead body. No, I don't know. I don't know. Depends if a company's willing to go that far. But then the big question, and I think if a company's willing to let AI make a very important decision about hiring, send volumes about the value they put on culture and collaboration and communication. Because imagine you get hired. Imagine you get hired. Imagine someone gets hired to your team, and you didn't say yes or no to that person. It was just all done for you, and the next day they're sitting next to you like, who the hell is this person? Like, I don't know how that would make me feel personally. I'd like to have an involvement, or at least know what's happening. But I think the element of the AI conversation, everyone, I think everyone's tired of it. Not of the conversation. I think it still needs to be had, but I think everyone's tired of understanding that, there is a big problem. And, you say go back to the beginning, which make better job descriptions. I would also argue that, yes, some companies do make very elusive, very vague, pretty much entire full stack teams into one job description. Then in saying that, and again, this example, that company in North Rhine was very specific. I mean, it was black and white. You had to have this, you had to have this, you had to be in this industry, black and white as it comes. And yet they still had that problem. So I see your point, but also see companies doing it and still struggle with this. And obviously we're only looking at 2 angles. So there's lots of other things. And you mentioned a lot of these companies are copying FANG style businesses. So I guess it explains to me a little bit more what you mean by that. Because with us in the TA world, we kind of have to do what we're told to some degree. Yes, if you're like a head of, you can help shape it. But as an IC, you are kind of just saying, like, this is the process. You can suggest, you can encourage, but if you've got a strong-willed CTO, you kind of got to suck it up and do it. But what do you mean when we say we're copying like these FANG-style companies?
So if you go to and try to understand how the tech hiring is working, we have like more or less the standard procedure of technical round of interviews. Like we have lead code style questions, we have system design interview 100%.
Sorry, just to check before we carry on. When you say leak code style, I know what you mean, but just
Yeah.
for someone who doesn't, what is
Okay.
leak code?
Lead code is the platform when you can solve and you're solving the data structure and algorithm questions.
Cool. In browser platform, right?
Yes, it can be in browser, it can be local, but more or less they send you algorithmic question and you solve it either online or locally and send it back. So that's basically doesn't matter so much in this case. Why they doing it at that way? Because big companies actually had this problem of a lot of applicants already 10 years ago, and they do have to somehow filter people, and they only focus on hiring the best of the best in the industry.
Mhm.
They can afford it. They have a lot of perks. They have great compensation package. They have the brand. They have stocks that cost a lot of money, and basically they can afford to hire for a long period of time. They don't have budget issues. Plus, this is, even though it happens, I still think that even this approach is not great, because in the end of the day, algorithm questions are not reflecting the real skills.
Why so?
Because to pass them, I have to go and study them for, I don't know, a couple of months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months.
Right.
Then I pass the interview. If I'm lucky, I get similar type of question during the interview. If I don't, I can get rejected. It can be the question that I didn't practice during the preparation. I don't know how to solve it, so I will just get failed. It can be that I get the question that I already get familiar with, I pass it, and then it's done. So it's basically pattern matching.
Right.
As soon as I pass the interview, 3 months later, if you give me the same question, the chance that I already forget how to solve it's really high. So it's basically turns out that you don't learn how to really do solutions, provide solutions to the problems, but you literally learn how to pass these coding rounds and coding specific problems for big companies. And now nowadays, most of these big problems that you see in these lead code questions, they've already been solved, and AI can also solve them. So instead of focusing on this type of questions, it's much better to create the coding challenges that are relevant to your job description and expectations on daily basis. Of course, I hear that a lot of companies saying it doesn't matter which size it is. It's a huge amount of time, it's a huge amount of effort. Why should we do it if lead code is already working? Yes, we know that it's not the best, but it's still working, right? And my answer is yes. For example, for big companies, it can work. Big tech, they have time, they have budget, they have really extremely great pool of candidates. They are top on this chain, but not all of the companies has the same perks. Do you have the same big brand? Most of the time, no. Do you have the same amount of perks? No. Do you provide the same salary? No. Then actually, how do you have the same expectations as these big brands?
The argument that I get is the time effort, right? So say we've got, I don't know, 400 applicants. We've already filtered it down to 10 because relevancy, whatever. You can't, I mean, you could in theory, but it will take a long time. And obviously, your day-to-day job as an engineer already, right? You never have enough hours in the day. And now I'm going to give you 10 tasks to review. And if you're reviewing them properly, that might take you anywhere from half an hour to 2 hours if you're doing it really properly. So then how can I expect my engineering team to put an additional, say 5 to 20 hours of work on top of their monthlies if, they've got to review 10 tasks for me?
Yes, in this perspective, this is a really valid argument. But if we compare those 20 hours, and also on the other side, we have people who just passed lead code questions and you get them automatically. They come to your company, they onboarded, you see them, they are not great. You have to let them go and you have to restart hiring again. How many hours and how much money do you spend on second or third try? If in
Yeah.
comparison to this 5 to 10 or 20 hours that you have to spend in the very beginning, if you really focus on preparing relevant job tasks and it's like coding challenges, and then test them carefully. AI, in fact, can speed up this process too. If you know who you're looking for, if you know the stack, you can help with the AI prepare the task in 1 hour maximum that is ready to go and relevant to the job description and your job expectations. Why not to use AI in this area?
So you're championing take-home challenges or live challenge, but an actual coding challenge relatable to the job, not just some random system design conversation. How do you build a data center on the moon, which is still the most wildest challenge anyone I've worked with has faced. Yeah, that was
Yes and
mental.
no. So we have to make distinction. I am advocating for, yes, for the job relevant coding challenge, but some companies use it and provide uh, home assignments that take 6 hours to complete.
Yeah.
And in this case, I always ask companies, do you pay for the time? No. Then why someone should spend 6 hours to complete it? You know, if it's 1 hour, okay, maybe two, but 6, 7 hours, I don't see the reason to do it. So if you provide any home challenge, please make sure that, you know, the time really matters here. It's like not more than 2 hours to complete.
To be honest, there's so I'm thinking now back. So the last maybe 2 or 3 years of companies I've worked with now. Actually, to be fair, and this isn't to throw shade at them because I don't think their product is really good, but Codility. I think back in 2021, everyone and their nan was using Codility in Berlin. I mean, across Europe, Codility was flying high, right? And then obviously loads of layoffs happened. Their product relies on tech hiring. Tech hiring doesn't happen. Their products, I mean, they're still around, don't get me wrong. All of my clients I worked with were using Codility. Now none of them use it. So that's my prime example. Like they've all, and we didn't use LeetCode at all. I don't think any of the teams use LeetCode, but they used Codility similar. So now all the business I work with have gone down the route you're suggesting, which I also agree with. I think relevant challenges makes for better hires. So I'm absolutely behind you on that. The time to do the task, the vast majority of them are about 3 to 4 hours, to be honest. The vast majority. I don't think anyone does more than 4 hours. So I'm trying to think now. There's a few people that do like full days on site, which again I'm not personally against. I quite like the idea of someone coming in and spending time with them and seeing everyone and coding with them. I like the idea of that they can leave knowing everything, right? Seeing a full working day. But 1 to 2 hours, does it test enough? That's the real question. And again, this is from the TA side of things, because what we would go and do is try and advocate to this, to you know, that's how I'm envisioning it, is those listening will go, actually, you know what, let me go and try and see if we can implement that. So how can we go and advocate for this internally to say, why don't we give this a go? So can we really get what we need out of a 1 to 2 hour task? Or do you need to have another conversation after? Do you need to have, what would be the next part?
It's a really interesting question that you just asked. Is it going to be enough to test it like this in 3 or 4 hours? For some reason, the same question doesn't raised or be raised when you are talking about lead code style questions, algorithms, and data structures. That's what I also want to ask. Is it actually enough? And in my case, it's not. You also mentioned the office 1 day of full site on-site interview. This is great in general, and I advocate this. However, not everyone can commute, and it's also a lot of time for interviewers to make it. So in this case, I advise people, the hiring managers or companies, provide it as an option, fast track option for some candidates, but don't make it like mandatory. You can provide, if someone is in Berlin, you have a position opening in Berlin, for example, you can provide an option for fast track. And then it's okay, person doesn't want to or You can do it, but that's also not a big deal. Now, coming back to your question, is the 3 or 4 hours task enough?
The 1 to 2 hour task that you're mentioning.
Look, even 1 or 2 hours, even 3 to 4 hour task is not enough to understand if candidate or is great or not. To be clear, 100%. And for those things, we have probation period. We can literally understand what happened, and if something goes wrong, you can always go back and try again. However, saying that 1 or 2 hours of real world coding challenge or something is not enough, let's replace it with algorithms. It's also not the best way to go. It doesn't fix the problem, it makes it even worse.
So I guess from your perspective, right?
Yeah.
Put yourself in my shoes in the TA function. What does the most ideal hiring process look like? Based on your own experiences, based on what your friends have shared with you about kind of where the market is. If you were sitting there and you're trying to sit and go, okay, I need to design something, because that's what I'd be really curious to understand. If you was to design the whole process end to end, how would you do it, and then why would you do it that way then?
I even wrote about it, an article on LinkedIn, and have a dedicated YouTube video about it. But to be really short and give you high level of what I see, and then again we can go into details. It's really flexible, depends on the company size and your expectations. So I would design separate hiring process for small companies, mid-levels, and big tech, because they all have their own requirements. But in general, everything's again start from job description. I would even sit with hiring manager, engineers, whatever the person who is making decision, understand who we need to hire, and only after that focusing on tasks that will be relevant, coding challenges that will be relevant to that job description. Yes, I am advocating for either home assignments or live challenges with the usage of AI during the interview. It should be mandatory nowadays. That's what I'm saying, because you're also testing the prompt engineering skills. You're testing if candidates actually have understanding of security of code, the clean code, the architectural decisions, and etc., the testing coverage. If you don't have all of this knowledge, AI will not going to help you. In fact, and you will see it immediately. So let the people use AI. And also, if that's possible in some countries, let recruiters use AI as a note-taking tool. I understand that in Europe it's not always possible. We have GDPR and etc. In some countries it's possible. So maybe if you have this opportunity, it's a great tool, because in this way you can specifically create a feedback, tangible feedback, what went wrong and what went really, really well. Then you can provide the feedback again in a tangible manner. This is another topic to discuss, by the way. When someone gets to the next round or they get rejected, they get in general messages like, unfortunately, after careful consideration and etc., they don't understand what to do next. Some companies do provide this additional calls, so to explain these things. But I think this situation also should be really, really extremely improved, and it can be improved. We can also discuss how, of course.
I think the biggest thing I'm hearing is time. From my own perspective, right, is time. There's just not enough hours in a day to do it all properly. And as much as we want to say we can, we don't. Again, I hold my hands up for every TA person out there. I don't think anyone in TA or HR has any intention to not follow exactly what you've just suggested. Because that's, if I speak to a head of TA or even an IC, like, that is an ideal situation. We sit down, we get everything in detail, we go right, can put in spec. Okay, someone might use leak code, someone might use take home challenge, but like the feedback loops and things like that. But it's the biggest problem we have is the huge abundance of applicants. That is the biggest problem that people face, is like there is just not enough hours to get through everyone and then do it in a substantial manner where, you've got a nice, for example, again, take example, right? I sent some messages out on Friday afternoon, I think 30 messages, and I've got 25 people back to me, which is just ridiculous, right? Now, you can partly blame me and say 30 is a bit high. I didn't expect that many people to come back to me, right? I'll be honest with you, I didn't. And now I'm staring down the barrel of 25 people for one position. I cannot send 25. I can screen them all, but and that's an entire day of screening. Well, not an entire day. That's 2-3 days of screening calls for me to cherry pick 3 people out of that. And that's just one recruiter, one job in one company. The logic of what you're saying is absolutely right. And I also agree with you in this regard. Tech hiring is broken because of this, but the solutions aren't anything what I don't think people are thinking about. Like that's my concern.
That's a really valid concern, and I totally understand your position as well. Of course, I'm not asking to implement everything at once of what I'm saying. It should be step by step, but because like to change it completely, it's going to be huge amount of time and resources. But for every single step I described, there can be something to be done to improve the situation, at least in 1%, to make it better just a little bit today, and then come back to this topic again in 3 months and see what else can be done. This is the main issue. So, for example, you mentioned a lot of people that come into the pipeline in the first 24 hours. Recruiters, first of all, for screening calls, if you have budget, if you have bigger company, you can hire also external recruiters that can help you to reduce amount, if you can do it as a policy. Some companies says, no, we want only to go with internal recruiters or hiring managers. Fine. In this case, you can also take, I don't know, first 10 relevant candidates and stop pipeline. Talk only with them. And then once you move to the next stage, fine, okay, you don't need to come back to this for now. You have this pool of candidates in your system anyway. You can always come and take another 10. Do it in chunks. We have also the same thing in the software engineering when we have pagination. You don't display all the thousands of data at once. You do it like 10 per page, 20 per page.
Yeah.
The same can be applied in hiring and pipeline. Chunk of people, screening, next chunk of people, if that's required. If not, you can jump to another position. What do you think about it?
I like that idea. As you're speaking there, I'm thinking about job boards, right? And it was no one's fault that this happened. But post COVID, hiring boom, money obviously was free pretty much. Lots of people, I think, tied themselves into job board contracts, LinkedIn being one of them. LinkedIn are very unforgiving with their contracts. They won't let you get out of it. So you've paid for 50 job slots or 20 job slots, you're paying for those job slots. And my assumption is, maybe I can't prove this, but this is an assumption, people maybe bought them at a cheaper cost for a long period of time and then were, playing catch up. And now you're saying it about, I'm even thinking myself, like I've so many times I've seen insert like Peritus partners. We haven't done it, but let's just use my company. Peritus partners talent pool, and then the job description is be the first to know when jobs go live. And all we're doing is collecting data just to talent pool, which is the absolute wrong way to talent pool develop, in my opinion. People did it. That is probably what. Now I'm thinking that's probably where this massive distrust between candidate and company has kind of almost stemmed from, where we took advantage of people who were looking by just saying, hey, come and apply to us. We won't tell you where a job is yet. There's nothing here. Don't worry about it, but we will tell you where it is. Come and apply. So go apply, never hear back. And then the company's applying 6 months later, but they didn't tell you. So now so that's probably one thing. But I think that's a brilliant idea. Like I said, I don't really advertise. I go and message people I know. So I'll put it up on LinkedIn. I don't pay for job slots anymore because I don't want to be inundated with 400 applicants. So I'll only go to people that I know, or I'll go headhunt for it. But for those that are putting up job slots, I think it's a good idea. Get your initial list, stop it, review. But it might just be too much admin turning it on and off. I don't know. Maybe that's someone who can come back to me and let me know about the admin side of doing that. But that is a good idea.
This is like also really important. While you're saying this, one really big message come to my mind, and I want to make this clear. Some of the solutions I provide, they can be really draft or not ready to implement at the moment. or maybe not relevant to implement at all. And I'm asking other people who are much smarter than me and much more experienced than me to share better alternatives and better solutions here. I am not the smartest person in the room. I'm just sharing what I know and what I experienced and people around me experienced. If you have better solutions that can be implemented today, I'm more than happy. Just do it. The problem I see that a lot of companies and recruiters tell me that we can't do this, we can't do that due to time constraints, budget constraints, company policy constraints. I understand you, but does it mean that we should just ignore this problem and say we can't do anything, let's just go with it like it is now? Because the problem is it's not getting resolved and hiring is really getting worse and worse every single day.
It's terrible right now. It really is. And you get there's a guy I follow. He's been on the podcast. A guy called Dominic Joyce. I highly recommend anyone in TA to go follow the guy. He's brilliant. He got a post the other day about hiring managers saying they can't find the candidates and candidates saying they can't find jobs. So who's getting jobs? That's the problem. So we've got this huge disconnect. There is a problem. Everyone can see it. It's blatantly there, and it's not, hey, let's just go and hire more recruiters, or an external partner is going to solve your problem, or get rid of leak code and put this. It's going to be the best thing ever. We need to be mindful that there's different problems are going to be for different companies, but there is a problem, and I don't think burying your head in the sand is the right way, personally.
So I agree with your point, 100%. And again, I want to emphasize on this. My ideas can sound really stupid to you. I totally fine with this. I don't have this kind of ego to say and try to defend myself. It can be stupid. Please propose the better solution. I'm happy if the problem is fixed, literally. People around me, companies will be really happy. Let's just do something about it instead of ignoring and say we cannot do this. So problem doesn't get resolved. In fact, it gets worse and worse every single day.
I don't think your suggestions are stupid whatsoever. And I know I lent into the time thing, the time constraint. And I do think that's genuinely part of the biggest problem is that where TA teams have been severely cut back, you've got teams of 2 where there should be a team of 5. And unless you're invested into the company, you're going to want to have your downtime and switch off. So there's just, I feel like there's just not enough everything right now. And yet everyone wants everything yesterday. So there's always this kind of, like I said, this disconnect. Before we wrap up, just one final question from your side, right? So again, you're coming into the conversation. I do really appreciate it. It's not an easy thing to kind of put yourself in the TA shoes when you're not in that space yourself. And I really appreciate you kind of bringing a different lens to it. What would you give, or what would you say if anyone come away from this conversation today and just go and do one thing? Just try and implement one thing. If it's not in your company today, try and implement this to see if you get an improvement. That 1% part. I know it will change depending on company size, where they are, and things like that. So a bit more of a generalist task. And then I guess people can try it and then maybe connect with you on LinkedIn and tell you whether or not it worked or didn't work. What would that one thing be?
Can I say 2 or it should be only 1?
Got to be one.
It should be only 1.
I'm strict.
Okay. Then I will use this as a moment to tell what's most frustrated candidates nowadays in the market. Please provide tangible feedback to the process. I know some companies are saying that we cannot do manual feedback for every candidate. We also have legal restrictions. We don't want candidate to sue us. That's totally fine. That makes sense. What can be done is in cooperation with legal teams to develop 3, 4, 5 templates that are 100% safe. And basically, if for example, your candidate has lack of technical knowledge, you can use one template. If it's communication skills, another template. You at least can give a direction in which candidate can make an improvement for the next time. Because this after careful consideration email doesn't give anything. In fact, it frustrates candidates because it's not careful consideration at all. That's the real here.
It's a manual, it's an automated reject. I 110% agree with that, by the way. I've fallen victim. I don't always give feedback. I'll be honest with you. That's a time thing. I've fallen victim of that. I do find myself doing it more and more, trying to consciously get that out to people. But sometimes it escapes me. It might come out, a week later. I apologize if that's the case to anyone, but again, we're only human. We try. But I do absolutely agree. I always try and give feedback if they've had a call with me and I've sent their profile. Any point in the process, if it's rejected, I will try to do my best to find out exactly just one thing. That's all I ask from my hiring manager as well. Just give me one thing that went wrong, one thing that went right, and let's build them up. Let's say, look, you did this really well, and give them something tangible, as you say. Because I do also feel like asking hiring managers for feedback, it's overwhelming, it's daunting. They've got all these notes. Where do I begin? Give me one thing. That's all I want. And then from that, if they get one thing from me, one thing from the hiring manager, one thing from 2 other companies, that's 4 things. That's a good week. Okay, you got 4 rejected, but you got 4 good pieces of advice that you can use to move forward with. And that I think super important. I really appreciate you taking the time. So if someone wants to continue the conversation with yourself directly, I mentioned LinkedIn. Is that the best place they can find you? You also mentioned YouTube. Where is the most well-received place people can get hold of you?
You can contact me on LinkedIn. It's the most up-to-date and most used platform in my case.
Perfect. I'll put it into the footnotes on this then. But until then, thank you so much for, like I said, for being part of this and for bringing a different perspective to tea time. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you for the invitation.
No worries.